Books. Although its role and purpose have changed and adapted throughout the years, they have always held an important place in American society. The printing and manufacture of books is now a $1 billion-a-year industry. But where did it all begin? The history of books started at a newly formed Massachusetts University, Harvard. I'm William Shaber.
And I'm Boomer Wingard, and today we are going to look at the journey of books in America.
The year was 1638, and Elizabeth Glover had just established America's first printing press. She had recently arrived from England with her 5 children. Her husband, Jose Glover, had died on the ship. It was at this printing press where the first book in America was published, the whole Book of Psalms faithfully translated into English meter, the Bay Psalm Book for short. Its 300 pages were flimsily assembled and full of errors, but the impact it would have on the history of books was huge. 6 years ago, a copy sold for over $14 million. Books printed during this period in America from about 1640 to the 1750s had 2 main purposes, education and prayer. It wasn't until the mid-18th century that books in America really started to deviate from these purposes.
It was in the mid-1700s that novel consumption exploded. According to online blogger Douglas Galby, novels were YouTube in the 18th century. Novels represented a huge shift and change in the potential arena that books could operate in. For the first time, readers could enjoy a book for pure leisure. However, this did not sit well with some intellectuals and authors. An unknown intellectual even remarked, to read a book merely in order to kill time was an act of high treason toward humanity, because one is belittling a medium that was designed for loftier purposes.
In the 1700s, there were distinct characteristics that differentiated the novel from stories of the past. Although there had been fiction throughout history, such as epic poems and tales, novels tend to focus more on current societal and cultural problems. They had a sense of realism that fiction in the past did not. Ian Watt, author of Rise the Novel, said the novel's realism does not reside in the kind of life it presents, but in the way it presents it. Novels began to focus more and more on the perspective and viewpoints of individuals. Ian Watt again said, from the Renaissance onwards, there was a growing tendency for individual experience to replace collective traditions as the ultimate arbiter of reality.
The demand for books sparked by the novel in the 1800s and the continuing development of the printing press created the opportunity for a new type of business venture, the publishing company. Major publishing companies began to develop during the late 1840s and allowed authors to publish their works without the high levels of associated overhead costs. In the U.S., New York rapidly became the center of the publishing market with such names as Harper, Putnam, and Scribner rising in the mid-1800s and continuing on into the present. It was also during this period, around 1860, that dime novels became popular. These novels were quickly written and focused on different hero characters.
Books became more accessible during the late 19th and early 20th centuries due to the development of libraries. At the head of this new project was the steel magnate, Andrew Carnegie. He funded the creation of over 2,000 libraries throughout the English-speaking world, the majority of them within the United States. The Detroit Public Library, funded largely by Carnegie, has been regarded as one of the most aesthetically pleasing buildings in Detroit, and today houses over 4.1 million books in 23 branches across the city. This increase in libraries and greater accessibility to books helped to combat illiteracy. Between 1880 and 1920, illiteracy rates fell dramatically from 20% to just 6%.
The publishing companies and libraries contributed to the development of the book industry, and the increasing breadth of the audience reachable by books allowed for such books as The Jungle to change the lives of thousands as it affected public opinion in the minds of those who read it.
It was 1904, and Upton Sinclair, a muckraker journalist, wanted to present the abuse and harsh working conditions that immigrants were exposed to. For roughly 2 months, he worked undercover at a Chicago meatpacking plant and carefully documented what he saw. 2 years later, he published his novel, The Jungle, with Doubleday Publishing Company. American citizens were outraged with what they read, but not for the reason that Sinclair intended. Readers were disgusted by the health violations and sanitary conditions that Sinclair wrote about, not so much about the plight of immigrant workers. Sinclair himself said, I aimed at the public's heart, and by accident hit it in the stomach. The Federal Meat Inspection Act was passed that same year in response. The Jungle proved that books are a crucial catalyst for social and political change.
Beginning in the late 1940s and the early 1950s, the Cold War saw the banning of many books, especially during the period of McCarthyism and the Red Scare. The ideas in many books seemed to detract from the unity of the nation, and as such they were kept from the shelves of libraries, schools, and stores. The action of banning books, such as The Grapes of Wrath, civil disobedience, and even Robin Hood shows just how powerful and influential the ideas within books can be.
For a while, big box stores such as Borders and Barnes & Noble seemed to be the way of the future for the book industry. They supplied an unbelievable diversity of book types and genres, and through their accurate record-keeping were able to predict changes in trends, including which books would become popular. However, developments in the industry such as the ebook, which is capable of holding thousands of books, and the reliability of online shipping from such sources as Amazon developed serious competition for these book outlets. Barnes & Noble responded to these changes in the market by strengthening their online presence and even developed their own e-reader, the Nook. Borders, on the other hand, did not adapt.
Rather than adapt to the new developments in technology, Borders strengthened their physical stores and stock while outsourcing their online sales to Amazon, an effective competitor to the big box store. Borders also failed to create their own e-reader, ignoring a rapidly growing market for ebooks. These failures to adapt led to the collapse of Borders, and while Barnes & Noble has continued on, many believe that the way in which we purchase our books is forever changed.
Furthermore, despite the increasing developments of ebooks, the sale of ebooks has seen a decline, while physical book sales have gone back on the rise. Ebooks were predicted to overtake paper copies by 2015, according to the New York Times. However, the sale of ebooks seemed to have plateaued, with a great many readers preferring paper books or using a combination of electronic and physical reading methodologies.
What started in a shifty publishing room at Harvard is now a multi-billion-dollar industry. No one knows for sure what the future holds for books, and while ebooks and tablets are nice, physical books aren't going anywhere anytime soon. This has been Boomer Wingard
And William Shaber, we hope you've enjoyed the show.